Years passed. The fairy market was held once more on the other side of the wall. However, Tristan Thorn was 8 years old, did not attend, finding himself packed off to stay with extremely distant relations in the village, a day's ride away. His little sister Louisa, 6 months his junior, was allowed to go to the market, and this was a source of ranklement to the boy. Also, Louisa brought back from the market a glass globe filled with speckles of light and glitter, and flashed in the twilight, in which cast a warm and gentle radiance into the darkness of their bedroom in the farmhouse, while all Tristan brought back from his relatives was a case of the measles. The farm cat had kittens, 2 black and white ones, like herself, and one tiny kitten with a dusty blue sheen to her coat and eyes that changed color depending on her mood, from green and gold to salmon, scarlet, and vermilion. They gave this cat to Tristan to make up for missing the market, and she grew, the blue cat, and she was the sweetest cat in the world until one night she began to prowl the house impatiently, to morale and to flash her eyes, which were the purple red of foxgloves. And when Tristan's father came back from the day in the fields, the cat yowled, bolted through the door, and off into the dusk. The guards of the wall were for people, not cats, and Tristan never saw the blue cat again. He was 12 and was inconsolable for a while. His father came into his bedroom one night and sat at the end of his bed, and he said gruffly, "She'll be happier over the wall with her own kind. Don't you fret now, lad." His mother said nothing to him about the matter, as she said little to him in any subject. Sometimes Tristan would look up to see his mother staring at him intently, as she were trying to tease some secret from his face. Louisa, his sister, would needle him about this as they walked to the village school in the morning, as she would goad him about so many other things. The shape of his ears, for example. The right ear was flat against his head and almost pointed. The left one was not. And about the foolish things he said. Once he told her that the tiny clouds of fluffy and white that clustered across the horizon at the sunset as they walked home from school were sheep. It was no matter. That later claimed that he had meant simply that they reminded him of sheep, or that there were something fluffy and sheep-like about them. Louisa laughed and teased and goaded like a goblin, and what was worse, she told the other children and incited them to baa quietly when Tristan walked past. Louisa was a born inciter and danced circles around her brother. The village school was a fine school, and Tristan Thorn learned all about fractions and longitude and latitude. He could ask in French for a pen of the gardener's aunt, indeed for the pen of his own aunt. He learned the kings and queens of England from William the Conqueror in 1066 to Victoria 1837. He learned his readings and had a fair copperplate hand. Travelers to the village were rare, but occasionally a peddler would come through the village selling penny dreadfuls, accounts of grisly murders, fateful encounters, dire doings, and remarkable escapes. The peddlers sold song sheets, 2 for a penny, and families would gather about their pianos to sing songs such as "Sherry Ripe" and "In My Father's Garden." So the days went by, and the weeks went by, and the years went by also. By a process of osmosis and dirty jokes, whispered secrets, filthy ballads, Tristan learned of sex when he was 14. When he was 15, he heard his arm falling from the apple tree outside Mr. Thomas Forrester's house. More specifically, from the apple tree outside Miss Victoria Forrester's bedroom window, although he had caught no more than a pink and tantalizing glimpse of Victoria's, who was his sister's age, and without any doubt the most beautiful girl for 100 miles around. I'll show the pictures. By the time Victoria was 17 and Tristan also, she was, in all probability, he was certain the most beautiful girl in the British Isles. Tristan would have insisted on the most beautiful girl in the entire British Empire, if not the world, and boxed you, or been prepared to. You argued with him, you would have been hard-pressed to find anyone in Wall who would have argued with you, though she turned many heads, and in all probability broke many hearts. A description: she had her mother's gray eyes and heart-shaped face, her father's curling chestnut hair. Her lips were red and perfectly shaped. Her cheeks blushed prettily when she spoke. She was pale and utterly delightful. When she was 16, she had fought vigorously with her mother, for Victoria had taken into her head that she would work in the 7th Magpie as a potmaid. I have spoken to Mr. Bromius about this, she told her mother, and he has no objections. What Mr. Bromius thinks or does nothing, replied her mother, is neither here nor there. That is a most improper occupation for a young lady. The village of Wall watched the Battle of Wills with fascination, wondering what the outcome would be, for no one crossed Bridget Forrester. She had a tongue that could, the villagers said, blisters and paint from the barn door, and tear the bark from an oak. There was no one in the village would have wanted to get on the wrong side of Bridget Forrester, and they say that the Wall would be more likely to walk than for Bridget Forrester to change her mind. Victoria Forrester, however, was used to having her own way, and if all else failed, or even if it did not, she would appeal to her father, and he would accede to her demands. But here, even Victoria was surprised, for her father agreed with her mother, agreed that working in the bar of the 7th Magpie was something that well-brought-up young lady would not do, and Thomas Forrester set his chin, and there the matter ended. Every boy in the village was in love with Victoria Forrester, and many a sedate gentleman, quietly married, with gray in his beard, would stare at her as she walked down the street. For a few moments even he would be a boy once more, in the spring of his years, with a spring in his step. They said that Mr. Monday himself is counted amongst the admirers, said Louisa Thorne to Victoria Forrester one afternoon in May, in the apple orchard. 5 girls sat beside and upon the branches of the oldest apple tree in the orchard, its huge trunk making fine seat and support, and whenever the May breeze blew, the pink blossoms tumbled down like snow. It would come to rest in their hair and on their skirts. The afternoon sunlight dabbled green and silver and gold through the leaves in the apple orchard. Mr. Monday, said Victoria Forrester with disdain, is 45 years of age, if he is a day. She made a face to indicate just how old 45 years, when you happen to be 17. Anyway, said Cecilia Hemstock, Louisa's cousin, he has already been married. I would not wish to marry someone who had already been married. It is, she opined, like breaking in one's own pony. Personally, I would imagine that to be a sole advantage of a widower, said Amelia Robinson, that someone else would have removed the rough edges, broken him in, if you will. Also, I would imagine that by that age, their lust would long since have been sated, and abated, which would free one from a number of indignities. A flurry of hastily suppressed giggles amid the apple blossom. Still, said Lucy Pippin hesitantly, it would be nice to live in the big house, and to have a coach and four, and more, to be able to travel to London for the season, and to Bath, to take the waters, or to Britain for the sea bathing, even if Mr. Monday is 45. The other girls shrieked and flung handfuls of apple blossoms to her, and none shrieked more loudly or flung more blossoms than Victoria Forrester. That's supposed to be Tristan. The shops and a shopping list. I apologize if you hear any sounds in the background. It's because they're mowing the lawns. Tristan Thorne, at the age of 17 and only 6 months older than Victoria, has halfway between a boy and a man, and seemed equally as uncomfortable in either role. He seemed to be composed chiefly of elbows and Adam's apple, with a constellation of acne spots across his right cheek. His hair was the brown of sodden straw, and it stuck out awkward 17-year-old angles. Wet and comb it, howsoever much he tried. He was painfully shy, which, in the matter of painfully shy, he overcompensated for being too loud at the wrong times. Most days Tristan was content, or as content as a 17-year-old youth with his world ahead of him can ever be. And when he daydreamed in the fields, or when the daydream in the fields, or at the tall desk at the back of Monday and Brown's, the village shop, oh my goodness, he daydreamed of riding the train all the way to London or to Liverpool, of taking steamship across the great Atlantic to America, and making his fortune there among the savages in the new lands. But there were times when the wind blew from beyond in the wall, bringing with it the smell of mint and thyme and red currants, and at those times there were strange colors seen in the flames in the fireplaces of the village, and when that wind blew, the simplest of devices, from lucifer matches to lantern slides, would no longer function. And at those times Tristan Thorne daydreams were strange, guilty fantasies, muddled and odd, of journeys through the forest to rescue princesses from palaces, dreams of knights and trolls and mermaids. And when these moods came upon him, he would slip out of the house and lie upon the grass and stare up at the stars. Few of us now have seen the stars as they saw them then. Our cities and towns cast too much light into the night, but from the village of the wall, the stars were laid out like worlds, or like ideas, uncannibal as trees in the forest or the leaves on a tree, and he would stare into the darkness of the sky until thought of nothing at all, and then he would go back to his bed and sleep like a dead man. He was gangling creatures of potential and barrel of dynamite, waiting for someone or something to light his fuse, but no one did. So on weekends and in evenings he helped his father on the farm, and during the day he worked for Mr. Brown at Monday and Brown's as a clerk. Monday and Brown's was a village shop, while they kept a number of necessities in stock. Much of their business was conducted by means of lists. Villagers would give Mr. Brown a list of what they needed, from potted meats to sheep dip, from fish knives and chimney tiles. A clerk at Monday and Brown's would compile a master list of everything requested, and then Mr. Monday would take the master list and dray pulled by 2 huge Shire horses, and he would set off for the nearest county town and return in a handful of days with the dray loaded high with goods of all description. It was a cold, blustery day in late October, of the kind that always seems about to rain but never actually does. And it was late in the afternoon. Victoria Forrester walked into Monday and Brown's with a list written in her mother's precise handwriting, and she rang the small bell on the counter for service. She looked slightly disappointed to see Tristan Thorne appear from the back room. "Good day, Miss Forrester." She smiled a tight smile and handed Tristan her list. It read as follows: half a pound of sago, 10 cans of sardines, 1 bottle of mushroom ketchup, 5 pounds of rice, 1 tin of golden syrup, 3 pounds of currants, a bottle of cochineal, 1 pound of barley sugar, 1 shilling box of Roundtress Elect cocoa, 3D, 10 of Oakley's knife polish, 60 of Brunswick Black, 1 packet of Swinbone's chiseled glass, 1 bottle of furniture cream, 1 basting ladle, a 9-penny gray strainer, a set of kitchen steps. Tristan read it to himself, looking for something about which he could begin to talk, a conversational gambit of some kind, any kind. He heard his voice saying, "You'll be having rice pudding then, I would imagine, Miss Forrester." As soon as he said it, he knew it had been the wrong thing to say. Victoria pursed her perfect lips and blinked her gray eyes and said, "Yes, Tristan, we shall be having pudding rice." And then she smiled at him and said, "Mother says that rice pudding is in sufficient quantity will help to stave off chills and colds and other autumnal ailments. My mother," Tristan confessed, "has always sworn by tapioca pudding." He put the list on his spike. We can deliver most of this provision tomorrow morning, and the rest of it will come back with Mr. Monday on Thursday week." There was a gust of wind, then so strong that it rattled the windows of the village and whirled and spun the weathercocks until they could not tell north from west or south from east. The fire that was burning in the grate of Monday and Brown's belched and twisted in a flurry of greens and scarlets, popped with fizz of silver twinkle of the kind one can make for oneself at the parlor fire with a handful of tossed iron fillings. The wind blew from very and the east, and Tristan Thorne found inside himself a certain amount of courage he had not suspected that he had possessed, and he said, "You know, Miss Forrester, I get off in a few minutes. Perhaps I could walk you a little way home. It's not much out of my way." And he waited, his heart in his mouth, while Victoria Forrester's gray eyes stared at him, amused. "And after that seemed like 100 years, she said. "Certainly." Okay, guys, that's the end of part 1 of chapter 2. So thank you so much for watching. Please, guys, do not forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, share, comment, follow me on Instagram, hit the bell for notification, and I will talk to you in my next video.